All right, I will say good morning, a good tevach. A tremendous chus Baruch Hashem to be able to begin another week of Sanhedrin together. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Tavshin Pei 5785, the Tilsim Mishpach of Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all the Sherman Drashos this year as a zechus for Besoros Tovos for Am Yisrael. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Teves, Haba Aleinu Latova, the Kelman family in memory of Amit ben David Levi, Zichron L'Vracha, the brother of Itai Levi, who was killed fighting in Gaza on behalf of Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael on the first night of Hanukkah. Our week of learning sponsors: Bruce Levin in the merit and memory of Avital Kala Bas Tova Batya, and Paul and Kathy Pollack in memory of Paul's aunt Esther Bas Zecharia Zichrona Livrach. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the neshamas will have an aliyah, the families ein nechama. Our HaKadosh Baruch Hu should Emirtz Hashem bring our hostages home b'shalom, and B'karav and our holy soldiers should be successful b'chol ma'aseh yedehem. Well, with that, let us begin. I apologize in advance. We have to stop a little bit early today, but Emirtz Hashem, and it's a perfect daf to have to stop early. We're totally fine. So Emirtz Hashem, but we'll be good. Again, we pulled it off. We pulled it off last week. Emirtz Hashem will pull it off again this week. Let's begin. So today's daf is Yud Tes 19. We are picking up on Yud Ches Beis 18b, 3 lines up from the bottom. Cholzin, Choleitz v'Cholzin. So remember again, the Mishnah spoke about the idea that a Kohen Gadol does not do chalitza. Kohen Gadol, right? Again, choleitz v'cholzin leishto. Choleitz v'cholzin leishto. Umiyab mines ishto. Aval hu einu miyab meshu aser ba'almanos. Remember again. So chalitza can be done too, and yibum can be done to the wife of the Kohen Gadol. But halacha l'maaseh he can't do yibum. Now, there's a very simple reason why can't the Kohen Gadol do yibum? Because halacha l'maaseh Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry any woman other than a basula. And of course, if he's doing yibum, that means the woman is an almana. He can't go ahead and marry an almana. Good. So the Gemara says, interestingly enough, kapasek v'tani lo shna min ha'irisin v'lo shna min ha'nisuin. So the Gemara says there's no distinction. It's interesting. The Mishnah doesn't make a distinction between a woman who was widowed from Erisin or from Nisuin. But obviously, halachically, now just to point out, when it comes to a Kohen Gadol, there's 2 halachas at play over here. Number 1, there is an asay of who isha bivsula yikach, that he has to marry a besula, and then of course there's a lav that he's not allowed to marry an almana. So now the Gemara says, interestingly enough, the Mishnah makes no distinction between whether or not this woman was widowed from Erisin or Nisuin. So let's analyze. So the Gemara says, Bishlam min anisuin havi asay v'lo sasay, the top of Yotes, ve'ein asay docha lo sasay va'asay. So remember again, if a woman was widowed from nisuin, then essentially a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry her because of an asay. The asay is he has to marry a besula. The lo sasay is that he can't marry an almana. So there's an asay and a lo sasay that would go ahead and prevent him from doing yibum. On the other hand, there's an asay that says do yibum. So an asay, the positive commandment of yibum, cannot set aside the asay and lo sasay preventing him from marrying this woman. So that makes a lot of sense. That's if she was widowed from nisuin. Because if she's widowed from nisuin, 2 things. Number 1, she's not a besula, and number 2, she's an almana. However, top of Yotes 19a, Ella min ha'irisin amai. But again, if she was widowed from Erisin, suppose the assumption is a man has not lived with his wife during Erisin. As such, she's still a besula. So therefore, the only issue with him marrying her is that she's an almana. So there's a lav that there's an almana, but there's also an asay of yibum. If that's the case, yavo asay v'yitchalos asay. So let the asay of yibum come and set aside the lo asay of almana and let him do yibum. We have this concept all the time of asay docha lo asay. A positive commandment sets aside a prohibition. To which the Gemara says, the phrase asay docha lo sasay is also a tremendous mantra in life. That a lot of times in life we want to do something. We feel like we have potential to do something, and then what happens? There's a little voice in our head that tells us all the reasons. Lo saseh, no, don't do it. It's not a good time. You're too busy. You're overextended. You don't know if you're going to be successful. Right? So I want to asay, but the voices in my head tell me lo saseh. So what do you do when you encounter a situation like that? So the beautiful thing is, Chazal already told us what to do. Asay, docha, lo saseh. When you have the energy and you have the desire to do something, shut down the voices, drown out the voices, and make sure that the asay is docha the los asay. It's a tremendous bumper sticker as well. It could be one of those card magnets, right? Everybody, it's amazing. Back of cars have become like billboards, right? But you can manage like a little magnet on there. Asay docha los asay. Not just the halacha, but hashkafa as well. Incredible. So if she was widowed from Erisin, so why not go ahead and do yibum in that context? So the Gemara says, Atu bia rishona. So this is very interesting. The asay docha los asay, of course, only works for the actual act of yibum. To which the Gemara says, you're right. You're right. By the way, it's a pretty solid halachic argument that a Kohen can do yibum with a woman who is widowed from Erisin, because then there's an asay of yibum, a los asay of not marrying an almana, and an asay is docha los asay, but that only permits the first bia. After that, right after the first bia, then what? There's no longer an asay. So after the first bia, the issue is you have no asay, and guess what? She's still an almana. So the problem just is, whereas the logic allows for the bia rishona, essentially, it will not allow for the continuity of the marriage afterwards. So quite fascinating. So in fact, the Gemara answers, that is correct. The Gemara says, you're right, halacha l'maisa, that works. That works. If a Kohen Gadol technically did Yibum with a woman who was widowed from Erisin, so he can effect Yibum with her, but he cannot remain married to her, because the first Bia could occur because there's an Asay of Yibum that is Docha the Lo Saseh, that she's an Almana. After the first Bia, there's no longer an Asay. There's no longer an asay, because technically they're married already. Not technically, they're married already, but she's still an almana. Remember, I will say, a woman never loses her almana status even once she remarries. She's still an almana. She still has a status of almana. So as such, any subsequent bia would just be the bia of a kohen gadol with an almana, which would be a lav. Incredible. Okay, so Rabbi say, so take away, kohen gadol doesn't do yibum. That's it. Doesn't matter again if the woman if his sister-in-law was widowed from Eris and Nisuin, can't do yibum. Next, mace, lo mace. So remember again, now we had an interesting discussion in the Mishnah about what happens if the Kohen Gadol loses one of the close relatives for whom he is obligated to mourn. So what happens under those circumstances? So the Tanakama said, so meis lo meis, in yotze achar, this is Rabbi Meir, right? Rabbi Meir essentially says that the Kohen Gadol follows the funeral procession, but he's always out of sight of the procession. So the procession goes, right? So again, he's behind them and out of sight. They turn the corner, he comes out. So he's part of the procession, but never in sight of the procession. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda says, absolutely not. Kohen Gadol doesn't leave the Beis HaMikdash. He's not part of the procession. So says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, Umina Mikdash lo Yetzei. So the Pasuk says the Kohen Gadol should not come out of the Mikdash. Now, but remember again, this is so the Gemara said, Lo Yetze Imayin. It means he cannot be part of the funeral procession. Aval Yotziu Acharehen. But he could follow after the procession. Keitzad, and again, this now quotes the Mishnah. This is Rabbi Meir. Keitzad, Hey Nichnasen v'hu Nigla. Right? They go in and he comes out. Hey Niglin v'hu Nechasa. They come out and he goes in. The idea is he could follow as part of the procession, but always behind the procession. Fine. V'yotzi ad Pesach. So Shapir Rabbi Yehuda. So we'll say, so remember again, so Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, what are you talking about? The Kohen Gadol is never part of a funeral procession. Why? Because the pasuk says, "Omina mikdash lo yetze." He doesn't go out to the Beis HaMikdash, so he's never part of the procession. To which the Gemara says, Amr Chari Meir. Meir says, 1 second, Rabbi Yehuda. If you take that literally, then ihachi the Beis HaNamilo. Maybe the Kohen Gadol should live in the Beis HaMikdash, right? He never goes home. So you should never leave. In other words, if you're taking it so literally to say that Mina Mikdash Lo Yetze means that the Kohen Gadol can't even join the funeral procession, right? He never leaves the Beis HaMikdash. So what do you mean? He never leaves. He doesn't go home. He doesn't go anywhere. El Hachikam. This is what it means to say Mina Mikdash Lo Yetze, Mikdushaso Lo Yetze. What it means, so Rabbi Yehuda says, no. What it means is like this. Sorry, Rabbi Meir says, what it means is like this. Mina Mikdash Lo Yetze means the Kohen Gadol remains in his state of Kedusha. Meaning, he should not do anything that in any way compromises that Kedusha. But again, he's allowed to go ahead and follow the funeral procession as long as what? As long as he changes it up a little bit and is not part of the formal procession. Since the Kohen Gadol has a very, it's choreographed. It's choreographed. They go in, he comes out, right? They turn the corner, he comes out onto the street. So since there's a distance, because remember, both say, what are we concerned about if he follows the funeral procession? What are we concerned about? That he's going to touch the mace. That's what we're concerned about. And if he becomes tamei, that's problematic. So again, Rabbi Meir holds that since we have a difference in the procession, he's not going to come to touch the mace. Rabbi Huda, agav merire dilma mikri v'asivinag. Rabbi Huda says the Kohen Gadol may become overcome by his grief, and in his intense grief, he may just end up touching the mace, and this could cause a problem. So we'll say, fundamental machlokes, Meir and Rabbi Huda, about halacha l'maisa, how does the Kohen Gadol, or does he follow the procession? You should know that Rabban Paskin is like Rabbi Huda, that a Kohen Gadol does not join the procession at all. He doesn't go. Not only does he not go to the funeral, not only obviously he doesn't go to the Levaya, but he's not part of the funeral procession at all. He remains at his post in the Beis HaMikdash, which I will say, if you think about it, is such an overwhelming yesod, that the Kohen Gadol is a person who his responsibility to the klal eclipses any other personal negias, any other personal responsibilities he has. That his responsibility to the collective it overshadows any other responsibility he has, even to his own immediate family. Now, that's not necessarily a model for us, for regular people, to emulate, but Lamaisa, Klal Yisrael needs people like that. Klal Yisrael needs people who live and breathe Klal Yisrael to the exclusion of everything else. That was the Kohen Gadol. That was a Moshe Rabbeinu. Again, it's not a model to be replicated necessarily. It's not a model to be replicated by every person, because it could actually be detrimental. But the klal needs people who live and breathe the klal. That's the Kohen Gadol. And therefore, again, as painful as it is, he does not go to Levaya. He's not part of the funeral process. He doesn't have the same mourning processes, even for his own close relatives. Incredible. Kishu menachem terabanan. Kishu omer b'shura lenachem esacherim. When the Kohen Gadol stands in a line to console mourners. So we're going to see again how mourning practice, we did a lot of this in Moed Katan, but again, the Gemara is like this: when the Kohen Gadol is standing in line to comfort mourners, right? So he's standing to provide comfort. What happens is incredible. Sgan umashuach sha'avar b'yamino. So the sgan is the assistant Kohen Gadol. The mashuach sha'avar. Now remember again, what's the mashuach sha'avar? So let's say we'll Kohen Gadol. We'll call him Aaron. Aaron develops a blemish. He breaks his arm, right? So while his arm is broken, he cannot do the avoda. So what happens? So the assistant Kohen Gadol steps in. When the Kohen Gadol, when Aaron is healed and comes back to his post, so what happens to the fill-in Kohen Gadol? So the issue is like this. He can't go back to being a regular Kohen. Why? Because again, Ma'alin b'kodesh ve'en moridin. You can't do that. Once you served in the position of Kohen Gadol, you can't go back. Issue is, you also can't have two Kohanim Gedolim. So what happens? He has this spot, essentially, of Kohen Gadol Emeritus. Right? What does Kohen Gadol Emeritus do? The same thing as every other emeritus position, right? You're like the Queen of England, right? You're just like, whatever. You go ahead. You're there. Definitely, again, chizik. It's good for people to see. But that's what he's called Meshua. So the Kohen Gadol. So when the Kohen Gadol is giving comfort to people, so he's there. And again, the Sgan u'mashuach she'avran, as right said, v'rosh beis av. And also the Rosh Beisav, remember again, the Kohanim were divided up into 24 mishmoros, right? Each one served a week in the Beis HaMikdash. Each mishmar was comprised of multiple families. And again, each day saw a different family or a series of families, and there was a head for each day. So the Rosh Beisav, whoever was the dominant Kohanic family of that day, the head of that family, stood by. I'm sorry. V'rosh Beis Av v'avelim v'chol ha'am mismolo, and the Rosh Beis Av, the avelim, the mourners, and the rest of Klal Yisrael, or whoever else was there, was on his left. So I will say this was the choreography. Ukishu omed b'shura. I will say, just so you understand, you'll say to yourself, "Wow, like why all the choreography?" So I will say, so remember, Kohen Gadol has to remain tahar. Tumah could be transmitted even through touch. you have to have a very organized line around the Kohen Gadol. There has to be choreography. It's also, by the way, as we're going to see, Kiddusha requires choreography. The holier something is, the more choreography is required to ensure that its Kiddusha remains. That's why, again, it's an interesting thing. When you show up in shul, right? How do you have to show up in shul? What are the rules for showing up in shul? Right, on time. If that was a rule, we'd have a problem, right? So the answer is there aren't really any rules per se, right? In other words, that you could roll in. Right? We're going to address a lot of these things in Meretz Hashem in our new Mikdash Ma'at, but you could a lot of interesting behaviors that have developed over the years that are quite fascinating, like walking into shul on Shabbos morning with a cup of coffee into shul. I don't know, I'm not an old person, but I never saw this growing up. I never saw it. Where people saunter into shul, it's like, yeah, I grab my cup of coffee, I'm coming into shul. No. That's not what shul is. Drink your coffee before you come to shul. Drink your coffee, come to shul. Shul is not the place where you come to have coffee with God, right? Shul is the place where you come to converse God. When you're learning, that's one thing. When you learn, that's one thing. But to come into shul with a cup of coffee and then you see chevra, it's really quite shocking. Chevra, it's like during davening, and there are some audible slurpers. I'm just going to point out, right? And what is that? What is that? Chazara sashatz, or you hear like the clicking of the top of like the travel mug. Take a sip of coffee, or drink it, and then people go for refills afterwards, which is like also incredible. I didn't know we offered that. I got to get in on that a little bit. So it's really, I'm just telling you, like it's something that mamish, like it's an avla, and it really is like it totally diminishes the sanctity of what a shul is, and fundamentally erodes what tefillah is supposed to be. It creates a casualness that is just not supposed to be part, because again, you see, the further removed you are from the Shekhinah, it's true, the more casual things become. The closer you go to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the more choreographed things become, right? That's why you go onto the Harabayas. So remember again, you can't go with your wallet, with your walking stick. You can't walk into the Beis HaMikdash with your shoes. And the further in you go, the more strict the choreography is. Why? Kedusha requires seder. Kedusha requires order. Kedusha requires a clear structure for how I'm getting from point A to point B. So the further removed from Kedusha I am, the more casual things are. That's just the way that it is. The closer to Kedusha I get, by definition, the more choreographed things need to be. See, everything to do with the Kohen Gadol. Yes, on a utilitarian level, everything is choreographed because he has to remain tahar. But it's also a din in Kedusha. If you want, and we know this in our own lives, if I want holiness, holiness requires structure. Holiness requires order. Holiness requires a schedule. Holiness requires choreography on every single level. If it's chap plop, just whatever, go with the wind, go with the flow. Right? Then lamaisa, you could accomplish great things, but that's not where kedusha is. Incredible. So Mar goes weiter. Kashu omeid b'shura misnachem yacherim. Now, if the Kohen Gadol is mourning, right, and again, he is being consoled by others, so then the halach is skan miyamino, v'rosh beis av v'chala amismalo. So ultimately, again, the assistant Kohen Gadol is on his right, skan miyamino, rosh beis av, right, so again, this is rosh beis av, and the rest of the nation is on his left. Aval mashuach she'avar lo asi gabei. So I'll say it's fascinating. So when the Kohen Gadol is providing comfort, so we note that both the skan and the mashuach she'avar. Skan is the assistant Kohen Gadol. Mashuach she'avar is the Kohen who served as the Kohen Gadol while the current Kohen Gadol was disqualified, and then again becomes emeritus afterwards. So if you notice, when the Kohen Gadol is providing comfort to others, the mashuach she'avar is present. When the Kohen Gadol is in mourning, the mashuach she'avar is not present. Why? Says this is incredible. My taima. Because I will say, as much as the Kohen Gadol does not go ahead and become tummy or go to the Levi or participate in the funeral for his loved ones. But again, there are certain parts of the avoda that he's not permitted to do. We'll discuss this. He feels that the Mashuach Sha'avar may rejoice at the fact that now he's not the acting Kohen Gadol. I will say, this is quite fascinating. What the Gemara is highlighting over here is there is some amount of inherent tension between the Kohen Gadol and the person who fills in for him when he's not able to act as the Kohen Gadol. People are people. People are people, and when you feel that your position is at risk, right, or you feel that someone else is able to do your job, it's threatening. It's threatening. So as such, it's fascinating. So when the Kohen Gadol is mourning, we tell them, Mashuach Sha'avar, don't come. Don't come. Don't come to be Menachem, because it's going to elicit negative feelings or potential insecurities within the Kohen. We'll say, you think to yourself, if there's one person in the world who shouldn't feel insecure, it's who? It's the Kohen Gadol. My gosh, you're the Kohen Gadol. I mean, I got it. You're not a doctor, right? But again, but you're the Kohen Gadol. You're the Kohen Gadol. My God, it's like you can't become holier than the Kohen Gadol. You're the only man on the face of the earth who is permitted to engage in the most intimate communion and K'ech Shechach Baruch Hu on Yom Kippur. It doesn't get higher. Even a Kohen Gadol has insecurities. It's such a validating, it's such sometimes we all walk out with insecurities, and we think that our insecurities are representative of the fact that we're so deficient, right? That we're so lacking. If only I was a healthier person, I wouldn't have insecurities. It's true, we all have to work on our insecurities. But of course, what Chazal are telling us is that having insecurities is just part of being human, and even the Kohen Gadol has them. Incredible. Amar Papa, Shema Mina Mahamas Nisa. To us, there are three things you should learn from here. Number one, Shema Mina, Hainu Sgan, Hainu Mamuna, that the Sgan and the Mamuna are two names for the same person, the deputy or assistant Kohen Gadol. Shema Mina, Avelim Omdim B'chala Am Ovrin, that I will say, so that when comforting mourners, the mourners would remain in place, and the nation, the people would file past them to provide nechama. Ushmamina avelim l'smol hamanachim ma'ondin. Also see from here that the mourners stand to the left of those coming to console. Tan Rabbanan. So we'll say, now listen to this. Let's talk about the development of this practice a little bit. This is incredible. Tan Rabbanan Berishona hayu avelim omdim v'chala am ovrin. But in the beginning, it was as we just said, the avelim would remain stationary, and the people, the comforters, would file past the mourners. So listen to this. V'hayu beis mishpachos b'Yushalayim miskaros zubazu. Get ready for this. There are two families in Yerushalayim that fought with each other. What was the fight? Zos omeres ani overes tchila. V'zos omeres ani overes tchila. What would they fight about? That when it came to the comfort line, or the comforting line, right? This was the people who were coming to comfort the mourners. These two families would always get into it, right? Family A would say, no, we're going first. Family B would say, no, we're going first. Whole machlokes, every single time someone died, and they had to go be menachem avo, these two families would always go at it. So what happened? Hiskinu she'am omdim va'avelim ovrim. So the rabbis changed the practice. Well, changed the practice, and what did they do? They changed the practice that the comforters no longer file past the mourners, rather the mourners file past the comforters. So therefore, again, there's no real order in the line of the comforters, because the comforters are standing in place and the mourners go by, which I will say, interestingly enough, is the practice that we have to this very day after the Levaya, after the Kvura, right? We form two shuros, we, the comforters, remain stationary and the mourners walk through. That was not the original practice. Original practice was mourners stand in place and the comforters walk by, which if you think about it, interestingly enough, sounds so much more intuitive. Why did it change? Because two families in Yerushalayim were constantly at it. They're both say, what do you see from here? See, do you understand what just happened over here? Halacha changed because two families in Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh were fighting. They're say, what do you see from here? How important shalom is. This is how important. I don't know. I would have thought, so what should we do with those two families in Yerushalayim? Sit them down and say, what's the matter with you people? Right? I mean, you don't have to say it like that, but something like that. In other words, what are you doing? So obviously, I'm sure someone tried that, but whatever was going on was much deeper. So you see from here, the halachic practice changed in order to maintain shalom within the ranks of Klal Yisrael. Gadol HaShalom. There is nothing greater for our people than shalom. Shalom is the kli that allows every other bracha to be showered down upon us. With it, we have everything. Without it, we have nothing. And so Chazal were ready to go ahead and literally change mourning practices in order to prevent two families from fighting, in order to cause the proliferation of Shalom within the ranks of Klal Yisrael. Overwhelming. Okay, let's go weiter. Says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Abba. Hechs Rabbi Yossi es hadavar liyashno b'tzipori. Shiu avelim omdim v'chol ha'am ovrin. So listen to this. So the Gemara says Rabbi Yossi changed back the practice to what it was. He changed it back to the practice of the avelim standing in place and everyone else filing past. So we'll say, so again, that was just, so because understand, Chazal changed it as a reaction to a particular event. So Rabbi Yossi felt that there's no reason why in Sipori, where we don't have this problem, I could do the halacha I could keep the practice as it originally was. Mourners stationary and everyone else filing past them. So listen to this. Rabbi Yossi organized, or he enacted the following halachas in Sipori. Number one, that a woman should not walk in the marketplace with her child behind her, but only should walk in the marketplace with her children in front of her. So what's the pshat? The Gemara said because of Ma'aseh Shahaya. So what happened? Rashi points out to her that there was a woman who was walking, her child was behind her. She turned around and her child was gone. Somebody had taken her child. So a man came over to her and said, I'll help you find your child. Took her to a home and she was violated in that home. It was a trap. It was a trap to violate her. So after that particular event, Rabbi Yossi said in Sipori, when a woman's walking in the marketplace, her children should be in front of her. Rabbi Yossi also dramatic about this. You say to yourself, really, you're going to enact a practice because of something that happened to one person? And the answer is yes. It's all the same thing. Gadol HaShalom. Halacha looks out for the collective, and halacha also looks out for the individuals. And the safety, security, and shalom of the individual and the community is paramount. It's interesting. It's fascinating. Rabbi Yossi instituted in Sipori that women should talk in the bathroom. Incredible. They should talk in the bathroom. They should converse in the bathroom. I will say, understand, by the way, the halacha is you're not supposed to talk in the bathroom. Right? It's important halacha to know. You're not supposed to talk in the bathroom. There's not a, hey, how are you? Hey, what's up? Fancy meeting you here. You know, right? None of that, right? None of that. There's no talking in the bathroom, right? Because again, that's normally a din in sneers. It's a din in modesty. Person go into the bathroom, take care of their needs, and then get out. That's it. Interestingly enough, the halacha here is that women should talk in the bathroom. Why? Mishum yichud. This is supposed to understand that it used to be bathrooms were, what's the word? No, what is it? What's the opposite? Is it unisex means for one gender? No? Non-denominational. Non-denominational, right? I know that's the wrong word. Right? Not co-ed. No, not co-ed. Not co-ed. This is going downhill. You know what? No more comments from the audience. I got this. Bathrooms, right? Bathrooms were communal. They were, thank you. They were communal. So what could happen if women were using the bathroom and a man walked in? He didn't know. So this way, again, if a man's approaching the bathroom and he hears women's voices in the bathroom, he knows not to go in there. So again, and to avoid any type of potential yichud situation. Quite incredible. Amarav. So the Gemara says, Amarav. Amram Menashia bar Avas Shilte es Rabbi Yoshia Rabba bebeis Almin dehutzel. Both say first one. So Rabbi Menashia bar Avas asked Rabbi Yoshia, the great Rabbi Yoshia, in the cemetery of Hutzel, and he said the following: Amrli, ein shura psucha b'chusa me'asara b'nei adam. For a shura, for the line of comforters for avelim, there is no din of shura if you have less than 10 people. Ve'ein avelim in a minyan, and the mourners are not part of the minyan. So bein she'avelim omdin v'chala am ovrim, bein she'avelim ovrin v'chala am omdin. And this is, it doesn't matter whichever practice you follow, whether you follow that the avelim are stationary and the comforters walk past them, or the comforters are stationary and the avelim walk past them. There is no concept of a shura with less than 10 people. Incredible. Kishum menachim. So Gemara says kishum misnachim. Ibayluhu. Ki menachi bu achrini. Hechi amrluhu. So we'll say when the Kohen Gadol. Remember again, when the Kohen Gadol is in mourning and people come to comfort him. So remember again, the Mishnah said it's actually quite dramatic. The Mishnah said that they walk in and they say to him, Anu kaparascha. We will be your atonement, which is so profound. Like the people are saying to the Kohen Gadol, we'll take your suffering. we'll take your suffering. Whatever is supposed to happen to you, let it happen to us. So the Gemara now says, when the Kohen Gadol comes to comfort someone else, so the Gemara says, what does he say to them? So Tashma, he says to them, you should be consoled. So the Gemara says, hey Chidami, well, what's the case here? So say, if we're talking about a case where someone's coming to comfort the Kohen Gadol, and he responds to them, Amar luhu ihu tisnachamu. So if somebody's coming to console the Kohen Gadol, and he says to them, you should also be consoled, it's almost like an ayin hara, right? So can you imagine, like someone comes into the Aval, they say to the Aval, Hamakam minachem eschem, and the Aval says back to them, you know what, thank you, Hamakam minachem eschem, right? So again, you don't say stuff like that. So if they're coming to console the Kohen Gadol, and the Kohen Gadol says to them, you should also be consoled, that's like an ayin hara. That doesn't make sense. Ella, watch this. Ki menachem la'achrini amar lahu tisnachamu. Rather, what it means is like this: when the Kohen Gadol goes to console someone else, he gives a simple consolation. What's his consolation? Tisnachamu. You should find consolation. You should be consoled. Now, I will say now, I think this is interesting, and again, if the Bekim and Dikduk could fact check this, it's interesting because this is the easier way to have written this word would be what? Tinachamu or tinuchamu. Tinuchamu, right? Be consoled. What's tisnachamu? Tisnachamu, I believe, is the hitpa'el form of the word. Hitpa'el, I paid attention for like 2 days in Ivrit, and right 2 days. It was hitpa'el, right? So it's the hitpa'el form, which is the reflexive form of the word. So titnechamu, right? Tinachamu would be consoled. Titnechamu means almost like engage in the process of consolation. It's like lehitpalel, palal, the shorish of lehitpalel to daven, right? Lehispalel, right? The shorish of lehitpalel is pei lamed lamed, that means to judge. Lehitpalel means to engage in the process of self-evaluation, to engage in the process of judgment. So tinachamu means to console, to be consoled. Tisnachamu means to engage in your own process of consolation. What is the Kohen Gadol saying? Chavra, do you know where consolation comes from? Consolation comes from within. Nechama comes from a decision to look at life from a different perspective, to look at life with a different set of eyes. Consolation comes from the moment when you realize that although I've suffered loss and life has not gone the way I thought it would, I am choosing not to lose myself in a state of sorrow. But instead, I am choosing to go ahead and look at life in a different way. This is my lot. This is what I got. This is the hand I've been dealt. And this is what Hakadosh Baruch Hu gave me. Then these are the circumstances I'm going to maximize. And by the way, we know, because what's the shorish of Nechama? We translate Nechama as consolation. Nechama doesn't mean consolation. Rabbi Soloveitchik points this out in the beginning, at the end of Parshas Bereshis, where the pasuk says, "Vayinochem Hashem al asher asa Adam." Hashem had Nechama that He created man. Nechama? What does that mean? And Rashi says, a change of perspective. What's consolation? Great consolation comes from a change of perspective. Consolation comes, grief, what's overwhelming about grief is this reality that life did not go according to plan. I had this whole vision, this whole idea, this whole plan for how life was going to go, and now again I've been visited by these difficult circumstances and I feel life has been derailed. What's Nechama? Nechama is a change of perspective. This is my new life. These are my new circumstances. This is my new reality, and I will not allow it to destroy me. I'm going to pivot. Not the life I planned for, but this life that I have, I'm going to maximize what I got and not lament what I have lost. So what is the Kohen Gadol? We'll say in one word, because you would think to yourself, Kohen Gadol, you could come up with something better than that. That's it, Tisnachamu. I don't know, a little vart, a little something, a pasik, Tisnachamu. We'll say that's it. Tisnachamu is the hitpa'el form of Nechama. Kohen Gadol says to the mourner, find the koach within yourself to find a change of perspective. Find the koach inside of yourself. For consolation is not going to come from anyone around you. They could help. Consolation only comes from within. And the only times it comes from within is when you choose to change your outlook when you choose to change your perspective. Not tinachumu, but tisnachamu. Incredible, incredible. All right, let's go back there. Says the Gemara, Melech, lo done. So we'll say now we're transitioning to king. So the king, right? The king doesn't judge and is not judged by others. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yosef, lo shar el Malchei Yisrael. This is only Malchei Yisrael. Ava Malchei Beis David, right? Regular Jewish kings. But Davidic kings, done v'done in Osan, judge and are judged by a court. Tichsev, Beis David Kamar Hashem Dino Levaker Mishpat, V'lo Daininan Le Inhu Hechi Daini. So we'll say, so remember again, so the pasuk says, when it comes to the house of David, Beis David Kamar Hashem Dino Levaker Mishpat. Ultimately, again, right, their din is to uphold justice. V'ilo dainina lei, and if you can't judge them, inhu hechi daini. So the pasuk says that Beis David has to be judges, right? But we'll say this is incredible. The only way to be a judge is if what? If you can be judged yourself. If you cannot be judged, you cannot stand in judgment of others. Incredible. The Gemara says, V'haksiv. The Gemara says, after all, because we say, V'haksiv, his kosheshu, the koshu, which again, we'll say the Gemara over here is quoting the pasuk from Sifanya, his kosheshu, the koshu, which literally means arrange. His koshu, the koshu. Literally, again, arrange yourself, and then you could arrange others. Amar Reish Lakish, kishat atzmicha, v'achakach kishat acherim. Organize yourself, right? Better yourself, ready yourself, and then you could go ahead and help others. We'll say such a profound yisod. You could only stand in judgment of others if you first judge yourself. You could only fix others if you first fix yourself. We'll say it's the hardest thing in life, right? Because judging others is one of the most fun things in the world, right? And engaging in self-judgment and introspection is one of the things that we avoid most. The Gemara says, if you want to stand in judgment of others, make sure you're in order. And if you're not in order, do not judge others. Which I will say is such a profound yisod in general. And it's not just judge. If you want to lead by example, then be the right example, right? A person wants, whatever it is in life, if you want to have an influence on others, make sure that your own house is in order. Your personalistic house is in order. Because if your personalistic house is in order, it is not in order, you're going to have a difficult time having an impact beyond. I will say, there's so many different, right? In other words, you want to build a relationship with someone else, you need to make sure that you're in a good place. You want to be a good parental role model, you have to make sure you're in a good place. You want to be a team leader in your profession, you need to make sure that you're in a good place. If you want to have an impact on other people, make sure first that your own personalistic house is in order. Because if your personalistic house is in order, the truth is, you're not really going to be able to have a lasting impact upon others. Incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, Elo Malchei Yisrael my time alone. So we'll say, so why is it that now Malchei Yisrael are Jewish kings, but not from the Davidic line? So why can't Malchei Yisrael be judged by a court? Listen to this. Mishum Ma'aseh Shahaya. An episode that occurred. What happened? The Gemara says, Da'avdei Diyanai Malka Katal Nafsha. This is incredible. One time, a servant of King Yanai. And I will say, King Yanai was one of the Hashmonai kings. Incredible, right? One of the Hashmonai, right at the Hanukkah, one of the Hashmonai kings. So one time, King Yanai's servant killed someone. Okay. So Shimon ben Shetach, who was the head of the Sanhedrin, said, okay, we got to summon this Eved to a court case in the Sanhedrin. We have to judge him. So what happens? They sent a message to Yanai. Yanai, your king, your slave, your servant killed someone. Send him to the Sanhedrin. Yanai sent him. Okay. Shalchulei ta'ant nami lahacha v'huad bivalav amratori yavo balashar v'yamod al sharo. They sent another message. Yanai, you also have to show up in Sanhedrin. Why? Because a servant is like a piece of property. A servant is like an ox. What's the halacha if one's ox kills someone? The owner of the ox has to show up in Beis Din as well. So Yanai, you got to show up in Beis Din. Yanai said, no problem. Asa v'yasiv. So Yanai came and he sat down. He took his seat in court. Amrlei sheben shetach Yanai hamelech amod al raglecha v'ya'idu b'cha. Right? Yanai, oh no. Don't sit down. Stand up. Stand up. You're in Sanhedrin now, right? Stand up. Do not sit down, right? And let them testify against you. In other words, now remember, just to be clear, it's not it's Yanai's property. In other words, no one's accusing Yanai of anything, but at the end of the day, Yanai is part of this trial because it's his property that killed someone. And Rav Shimon Sheta says to him, "V'lo lefaneinu ata omed." You're not standing before us. Elo lifnei mi she'amar v'haya olam ata omed. You're standing before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shnei amar v'amdu shnei anashim asher lahem ariv lifnei Elokim. Amar lo. So therefore they tell Yanai to stand up. Yanai says, "Amar lo." So Yanai says back to Shimon Meshatach, "Lo ki shetamar ata elo ki ma she'amru chaverecha." So Yanai says, "Hold up, Shimon Meshatach. I don't have to stand unless all the other Rabbanim here say I have to stand as well." In other words, Tosas points out over here that the halacha is like this. There is no halacha that says that litigants have to sit or stand. What the halacha says is one can't sit and one can't stand. So in other words, either both stand or both sit. So Yanai felt he's being a little bit mistreated over here. He's like, I don't understand, why are you telling me to stand? Why are you telling me to stand? Again, if everybody's standing, I'll stand. But why are you singling me out to stand? So Yanai says to Shimon Shetach, if all of the Rabbanim here, right, if all of the Rabbanim here say that I have to stand, then I'll stand. So we'll say, what happened? I'm a base. Nifta limino. So he turned to his right, Kav Shupanei Mekarka. So the Rabbanim, the other members of the Sanhedrin, avoided eye contact with Yana. You know how, we all do this sometimes, where you just pretend you're busy. See, thank God for phones, right? Baruch Hashem for phones, because you can always look busy, even if you're not. I don't know what they did in the Sanhedrin. I don't know, maybe they had like a safer or something. I don't know, whatever. Right? So whatever it is, they avoided eye contact, pretending like they did not know what was going on. Niftel l'smolo v'kashu p'nei mekarka. He turned left, and all of the Rabbanim avoided eye contact. Amar lahem Shem Shetach. Pali machshavos atem. You guys think I don't know what you're doing? So Shem Shetach, you think Pali machshavos means you have your plans, what you're doing. I know what you're doing. Yavo bal machshavos v'yifra mikem. Let the Baal Machshavos Kadosh Baruch Hu come and exact punishment from you. Miyad ba Gavriel v'chavtan b'karka umesu. That's an intense story. Malach Gavriel came and literally again killed all of the Rabbanim. Right? Killed all of the Rabbanim. Now whether or not this is literal or there was a punishment, point over here is there was retribution. Now understand, why were the Rabbanim not getting involved in this? Why are they not getting involved in this? They were scared of Yanai. They were scared of Yana. In other words, the king is putting you on the spot like this, and essentially you're between the king and the Av Beis Din. That is a very uncomfortable spot to be in. So they just tried to avoid it. But also, Shah Amru, Melech lo dan v'lo dan, and also lo meid v'lo meidin also. So in that moment, they made the new law. Kings do not get tried and are not part of a court system. Which I will say, if you think about it, it makes sense. It makes sense because it is so incredibly difficult, ultimately, again, for a melech to be tried. Now, what does that mean? That a king is totally above the law, that he could do whatever he wants? No, we're going to discuss it. So I want to point out over here how there is this fascinating distinction between Malchei Yisrael and Malchei Beis David. Right? So Davidic kings are subject to the legal system, so it's only apparently kings Malchei Yisrael who are not. Again, what responsibility a king has to a judicial system, we will see. Lo chol beitz v'lo chol tzin. So remember again, I will say the halacha is that we don't do chalitza, right? There's no chalitza. The king doesn't do chalitza, and we don't do chalitza with his wife. So the Gemara says as follows: Ini is that so? Even if you say that a nasi, right, who is mochel on his covenant, he forgives his honor, so it's forgiven. Melech shemachal al kvodo ein kvodo machol. A king is not permitted to forgive his honor. Shnei amar som tasim alecha melech shetei e mascho alecha. Right? That ultimately, again, the reverence of the king must be upon you. Must be upon you. So the Gemara says, good. So the Gemara says, okay, a mitzvah is different. So even though you're right, even though normally, again, the king, halacha l'maisa, cannot be mochel on his covered, but for the performance of a mitzvah, there's something different. Ve'ein no sin. You cannot, so again, lashon of the Mishnah over here was, ein no sin. Ain't no sin amanoso. You cannot go ahead and marry the Ammon of the king. So I'm sorry, I should just clarify. That previous one was talking about according to Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Huda said if the king wants to do chalisa or wants to do yibum, he's allowed to. So the Gemara says, how could he do that? Isn't that compromising his dignity? Rabbi Huda holds for a mitzvah is different. Fine. Next. You cannot marry the widow of the king. So the Gemara says as follows. So the Gemara says, Tanya, Amr lo Rabbi Huda, Noshim haru'uyos l'mi beis hamelech. So they said to Rabbi Huda, talking about women who are roy to him from the beis hamelech. Umaynin, who is that? Meirav umichal. So we'll say it's about David HaMelech, who married Meirav and Michal, the daughters of Shaul. Now we're going to talk a lot more about that. Shaul, tell me this, Rabbi Yossi. How was David HaMelech able to marry two sisters, right, while they were both alive? That's Asr. Amar Lahan, Michal achar misas Meirav nasa. No. David married Michal after Meirav died. So in other words, he was married to two sisters, but never at the same time. Rabbi Shmuel ben Karcha Omer Kiddushay Taos Hayla b'Meirav. This is very interesting. In fact, David was really never married to Meirav. It was called Kiddushay Taos, mistaken Kiddushin. What happened? I will say it's a fascinating story. First of the intermediate white line. Shneimar, Tineas Ishtias Michal Sharasti li b'Meir Arlos Plishtim. So David HaMelech says to Shaul, give me my wife Meirav, who I am betrothed to because of the 100 Philistine foreskins that I gave you. Or that, right? So Gemara says, my Talmudah. What's the story with Michal that we're talking about over here? Amar Papa, Michal Ishti v'lo Meirav Ishti. So he was saying, Rabbi Papa said that David HaMelech was saying, Michal is my wife and Meirav is not my wife. Now what's the pshat? So the Gemara says, my Kiddushay Tos. So what does it mean? Ultimately, when the Gemara says that Meirav was Kiddushay Tos, right? So he married Meirav and it wasn't really a real marriage, but the marriage to Michal was a real marriage. What's the pshat? T'chsiv. V'haya ish asher yakenu yasser HaMelech osher gadol. So we'll say this is by Goliath, by Goliath. So Shaul says, remember, no one could defeat Goliath. So Shaul says, whoever could defeat Goliath, I will go ahead and reward him with great riches, right? And also my daughter, right? Also my daughter's hand in marriage, Meirav's hand in marriage. Azal Katle. So ultimately, again, David kills Goliath, and therefore, again, Amrlo, Milva Isli Gaboy. So what happens? Well, this is fascinating. So now, watch this. So now David is entitled to marry Meirav, and Shaul owes him money. So David, so to speak, forgives the loan, right? Shaul owes him money. David forgives the loan and says, again, that should count as the Kiddushin. Now, what's the halacha? So, Mekadesh b'milva ena mikudeshas. Ultimately, again, if you're Mekadesh with a loan, it doesn't work. Loan forgiveness does not work for Kiddushin, right? For Kiddushin, you have to actually give us an item of value. Loan forgiveness is not an effective form of Kiddushin. Azul Yaveh Adriel. So Shaul gives Meirav to another man, his wife, to Adriel. D'chsiv, v'hi be'ez teis es Meirav ba'Shaul David, Amrlei, ibois de'etein lecha Michal. So then Shaul says to David, if you want, I have another daughter, Michal. I'll give her to you in marriage. Zil aisile mea arlos plishtim. Okay, you know what? Here's the deal. Bring me 100 Philistine foreskins. Usually a red flag, right, with father-in-law dynamics, right? And I was like, so go ahead and bring me 100, or kill a bunch of plishtim and bring it to me. So David HaMelech brought it to him. So what happens? So Shaul said like this. Now there's two things, right? There's the milva, there's the loan that I still owe David from the killing of Goliath, and let's call that the arlos are worth a pruta. So I say now there's a loan and there's a pruta. So the Shaul savar milva pruta daitea milva. So Shaul assumed that David HaMelech's intention was to affect kiddushin with the milva, with the loan. That still doesn't work. For David savar milva pruta daitea pruta. So David figured, no, my das is on the pruta, and that's why again Shaul thought also the kiddushin with Michal wasn't good, but David knew that the kiddushin with Michal was good. Or maybe not. Maybe everyone agrees that when there's a loan and there's a pruta, the das is on the pruta. So Shaul savar lo chazav lo midi. But Shaul thought that the foreskins, the arlos, were worth nothing. The David savar chazav lekalbi v'shunri. Ultimately, again, but David figured, no, they are worth something because again, they could be given to animals. They could be given to animals, and therefore halacha l'maisa, it's worth at least a pruta. I apologize. You have to stop a few minutes early. We're going to stop over here for today. We're perfectly on track. Do not look ahead. Don't look ahead. Whatever you do, we're fine in Mirza Hashem. It's going to be a tremendous beginning of the week. All right, Chavran Zoom, have a great day, everyone.